My name is Dorothy Ligo Cordova. At present, I'm the Executive Director for the Filipino American National Historical Society, and I imagine that's why you're filming me for history. My dad came to the United States with two cousins. They were supposed to go to Chicago, but the trip on the boat took 3 weeks, and they changed their mind. What they did then is they took a boat from Port Townsend to come into Seattle. And part of the reason for that was one of the cousins decided that he wanted to go to the University of Washington, and they knew that they could go to Alaska in the summer to earn tuition. And then my dad told them that he would support him. And so the three young men, and they were all teenagers, they came to Seattle, and that was in 1919. So my family's been here over 100 years. The first house we had was on First Hill. We were renting, of course, because you can own property. And then we went all the way down Jefferson, and we rented a house, the top of a duplex across the street from the high school. My dad took me because I was the only girl. So I had 3 brothers at that time. And he brought me to this house in the valley, and we bought it. And apparently, through his lawyers, because my dad was a businessman, he had 2 lawyers. So they figured out a way how a Filipino could buy a house. And apparently, they did what the Chinese and Japanese did. They bought homes in the names of their children.
How does that work?
They were American.
Our granduncle Pio Decano, he's one of the roots of relatives that brought my dad's side. He came mid-1920s, and his first business here was as a labor contractor. So if you showed up on a boat, literal boat, showed up on the dock, and you wanted to find work, he would give you access to different companies who are hiring in fishing, farming, general labor, and you would have to sign a contract with him.
My dad established himself as a labor contractor and got a lot of jobs for Filipinos would come here looking for work, which enabled them to settle here in Seattle and California.
He does this case, Decano versus Washington State, and he wins.
He bought property at 207 Erie Avenue in Seattle, Washington, and it was challenged by a group of people that said that Filipinos couldn't own land. So it got to the Washington State Supreme Court in April 1943, and they said yes, it was legal for Filipinos to own land.
Welcome to Wapato. My name is Reynaldo Orfresio Pascua. I was born on May 17, 1950 in Ilocos Sur, Philippines. 1953, my mother and I came on the SS President Wilson from the Philippines, stopped in Hawaii, and then went on to San Francisco. And it was there in San Francisco that an Uncle Ambrosio Pascua traveled down from the state of Washington, the Yakima Valley, to pick us up and bring us from California to the Yakima Valley of Washington State. That was the first time I met my father in October of 1953. And that's when I met this really big community of people here and participated in the Christmas program. That Christmas program was the first time I was introduced to the Filipino American Community Hall of the Yakima Valley. And it had been inaugurated just the year before, in 1952. It's remarkable that today we're one day short of celebrating the placement of that Filipino Hall on the United States Register of Historic Places.
In ending, I just want to say that my wife coined the term the Pearl of the Valley, And so for the Pearl of the Valley Filipino Community Hall, it stands as a permanent reminder of our pioneers' legacy. Enjoy it today. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much. Drive safely going home. Thank you.
We'd like to unveil the plaque, which will mount to the outside of the building, which will basically signify the state's recognition and national recognition of our Filipino Community Hall.
Nice.
There was no hi-fi at that time. In '65, there were residents, there were concentration of Filipino families. In fact, on the street where I live, Coronado Street, 50% are still Filipino homeowners that bought in the 50s and the 60s. But there was no Filipino town, so to speak. There were stores in the area, but it wasn't until the 80s that I became aware, and that's what made my parents move back here, because they were involved in the beginnings of this activism for Filipino town.
I'm very supportive of this whole effort called the Hi-Fi Coalition, the Historic Filipino Town Coalition of various legacy organizations and community organizers who share this interest in advancing, enhancing this distinctive district we call a historic Filipino town. That's why I think community organizing, community advocacy, community engagement, community outreach, talking to people who live here, organizing that voice, translating that into advocacy strategies are all critical if we're all agreeing we are not invisible, we've been here for years, we're not going anywhere.
This is my family property in Delano, California. My dad bought this in 1954. It's actually 4 lots. The house next door was actually part of the property that my dad bought. And at that time, these 2 lots, half this lot, half the other lot, my dad planted a lot of vegetables. This is like two lots right here. So the house was on that corner where you see that digger. You see that cement platform? That was a room that my dad would let his friends stay and sleep over. You know, a lot of the Manongs. If you can imagine, my dad bought 4 lots for only $5,000. And then when they built the house, you know, they saved the money and they were only working in the fields. But I think from what I understand, they got a loan for like $15,000 to build this.
We're on 11th Avenue and Ellington Street in Delano. And this used to be the H&B market. H&B meaning Hindang Brotherhood, a uniquely Filipino, 100% Filipino-owned store right here. And it's huge inside. I mean, in 1955, a purely owned Filipino store, this is big. All the Manos on the weekends used to come here to cash their checks. That side of town across the tracks were all white puti, and this side was all brown, black, whatever. So they forced us to be here. So if we couldn't get there, they couldn't deny us here. All I know is there was no Filipino business on that side of town. And the funny part was there was no white businesses in our side of town. They made you realize where your place was. It wasn't law, but they did it. Racism runs deep in America, probably more so in the South, but it runs deep. It still runs deep today. When the strike happened, a lot of Manongs were kicked out of the camps, or the camps closed down. So where did they go? They went here. Agbayani Village is thought up by Larry Leong and Philip Veracruz, because they knew that once the camps were going to close, they knew that was coming. The Manos needed a place. This here, this village, this building, it really reflects the history of the Filipino farm workers from way back. Agbayani Village symbolizes the Filipino struggle. I can't name another place in America that embodies or embraces that idea. I mean, this is it.